I would absolutely love, I'll have to get working hard to raise the funds, but I'd absolutely love to get you in to talk to our girls, you know, in the autism youth group that I do once a month, because a lot of the girls, I mean, even the older girls really don't know much about periods. Even if they're already having them, they might, you know, there might be questions. So as soon as I'm in a position to do that, I will be in touch.
Yeah, I'd love that. Vanessa, it still says I'm unable to start video. It says you can't start your video because the host has stopped it.
You're muted, Vanessa. That's better.
Yeah. Robin, what you need to do is open your film and screen share again.
Why?
Because that's how we see your video.
Did you see my video when I was using PowerPoint earlier then?
No.
Yes, we did.
No, it didn't. Not have PowerPoint. No, it's all PowerPoint, but not you.
Yeah. Well, I'm trying to make it so you can see me, but when I click on start video, it just says that the host doesn't allow it.
No, it shouldn't be. I've not done anything from my end. I know that Sarah had the same problem earlier. So it's something on the setting on your end. I don't know why it does it.
How did you fix it, Sarah Jane?
I can't remember. Sorry. That was hours ago. I've lived a lifetime since then, Robin.
Okay.
Sorry, that's no help at all, is it?
I mean, what we could do is basically, anybody got any questions to ask? I mean, I suppose what everybody can do, because obviously this is a separate recording, and it's basically, I suppose everyone can introduce themselves, who they are again, because there's some people who just started joining us. So I'll say I'm Venessa Bob. I'm a mother with 3 children. 2 of them got autism, ADHD, and the youngest got epilepsy. The older one is got moderate language difficulties, and she has got a 2-year-old son. That's another issue within itself, because that's where Carly came in to support me when we look at teen mums with special needs, especially if they're undiagnosed, how they can get lost in the system. And my journey's been where I'm just still trying to have a voice for my daughters now, because my son, I won't say he's okay, he's 17, but I've just been left to just cope. And it is the autistic community that have been pushing and supporting me for the last over 10 years. And that's why I've brought everybody together. Everybody's been telling me that they've had that problem. I've brought the people forward that have been in the background helping me. And you can see why I've become very vocal, because of what is being behind me, pushing me.
Shall I go next?
Yeah.
So, hi everybody, lovely to see you. I'm Sarah Jane Critchley. I'm an author, speaker, consultant and coach, and I also have 2 autistic children, an autistic husband, and I'm self-identified as well, so a member of the tribe. Hello gang. Our experience has been interesting and varied. I've had children who've been educated mainly through mainstream, but also fallen out of school. So if you missed that bit earlier, if you were there, you'll have heard how traumatic that process was. And my 2 children are now adult, and they're both over 18. So I finally got to the one position that I really wanted all my entire life, was just to get them to be adults, to get them to adulthood, because I was never entirely sure that I would be able to steer them to that safely and that they would survive the experience, because it was a bit touch and go a few times. So lovely to see you. Can't wait to see your questions. Laurie, do you want to go next? We'll do tag team.
Yeah, okay, right. I didn't realise that we were kind of introducing each other like that. I thought you were then going to get questions if people ask things. So, yeah, eek. My name's Laurie Morgan. I'm an autistic author, parent, grandparent. I design and deliver training workshops to develop understanding of autism and the world that we live in and how we see it. I very much try and put across the human side. I very much gear up to putting delegates into our experience and appreciating experiences through our eyes. And I do take very much saying, look, I am just one person representing a community, saying that a lot of my experiences are identified with and shared by other autistic people. So it's not just me, it's not just my experience. This happens to other people. This has happened because I've got a professional background as well. I've been a university mentor. I've been a mentor in further education. I've worked in supporting autistic people in different settings, different ages, like supported living, residential care, day services, and basically from birth to maturity and having children of their own. And the support that I offer, that I have offered, especially with the students that I was looking after when I was a mentor, they're still always, I've always have an open door policy. You know, like, you can come back to me anytime. And through social media, that actually does happen, which is an incredible experience. It's really validating, and it shows that, you know, that part of my diagnosis really did matter, because a lot of this stuff, it just simply, not a lot of it, none of it would have happened without that initial diagnosis. I would not be here, I would not know who I am, I would not be of any use to anybody else in autism world at all. And it's been a difficult life, a difficult journey, but it's one that's been worth living, and I'd like to at least communicate a little bit of that to other people, especially parents who are going through this stuff. So they are where I was 10, 15, 20 years ago. So yeah, that's me.
Brilliant. Thank you, Laurie. Robin, do you want to just do a very quick intro in case anyone missed your intro in your talk?
Yeah, my name's Robin, and well, at least you can see my photo now. But I am a real person, and I move. I am autistic. I was diagnosed when I was 11, and I have 9 other disabilities. And I'm someone that sees autism as a disability, but obviously not everyone does, and you know, both views are valid. Just want to point that out. I've written a couple of books. One is about safety, and one is about periods, and I'm writing one which is about self-employment. So if you have any questions about self-employment, I would be very interested in those questions. Yeah, I don't know what else I can say really. I've done a bit of mentoring and consultancy and various other things. And I just want to recommend Sarah Jane to everyone, because I mean, Sarah Jane, I think, is the only person that I've worked with professionally where I've employed her to do something. Like, everyone, I can vouch for everyone here being amazing speakers. But Sarah Jane, she works with me with one of my clients. It's quite a big local authority, and it's sort of like wading through treacle with like the actual training bit. I can do that, but all the paperworky stuff, and Sarah Jane just deals with it. But she really goes above and beyond. She's there when you know, if she knows, she's got a spreadsheet, she knows where I am. And if I'm doing a training where the journey's difficult, she knows to be on call, and she's always been really kind and helpful, and is never pissed off when I'm struggling. And yes, so she's fantastic. And also thanks to Venessa, you've been really supportive of me. I met Liz Pelicano through the thing, I can't remember what the church is called, on you know, when you come out of Tooting Station and you go up towards Eamon Corner, the one with the really nice windows, we met there. You know, we both live in Wandsworth, and so sometimes we bump into each other in Tooting or at the cinema or whatever. And it's, yeah, so thank you for putting this on, because it's really great.
Brilliant. Thank you, Robin. And welcome, Carly. It's so lovely to see you here, or at least to see your photo. I think we're doing the non-moving and non-moving versions, so we'll have to jive for you. Sorry, babe. Would you like to do your own intro, and then we'll be able to take some Q&A?
But before I do, thanks to everyone. All incredible insights. I've been dipping in and out all day in between dog training, throwing cheese at him to keep him quiet. For those that don't know, we've recently got an assistance dog in training being the underlining word there. So life's pretty busy at home. Hello everyone, my name's Carly. I'm terrible at doing self-introductions because I'm the sort of, I like to advocate for other people, not particularly for myself. So when I do a lot of autism stuff about mainly women and girls, special interests. I sit on quite a lot of boards. And my aim of being there is obviously for the board's agenda, but obviously my personal agenda in all of that is to ensure that no one's left behind. Safeguarding is incredibly important to me, be that from sexual exploitation or from grooming, brainwashing, teen pregnancy, and healthcare is one that I'm phenomenally interested in. And I try and make sure that when things are happening for anybody in the UK, that the voices, experiences and vulnerabilities of autistic people in general, particularly women and girls, aren't left behind. It's something I'm really passionate about. So I'll stop rambling, but I'm very, very excited to answer some questions today and hope I can be of some use. But to be honest, after listening to everyone today, again, dipping in and out, I feel like a bit of a spare part because you've got phenomenal people here. So I will try my best to be of use within this very stellar panel of women.
Thank you, Carly. That's so sweet of you. Right, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to pick up a question, and then I'm quite happy for people to dive in and answer. Because we haven't got visual on Robin and Carly, you might have to speak up at that point. So I'll call on you if possible. So the first question, I'm going to start the questions at about 2:19, which is when we started getting questions for this afternoon. Then I'll go back to ones from this morning because we answered a lot of those then. And there may have been people who missed out on that, and we may have other people who've got some really good answers to add in to what we said earlier. So I'll try not to answer those because I've been blathering on all day. So the first question is related to the problems with girls not being diagnosed and autism in girls, especially not always understood by social services. Can I ask the panel's thoughts on social services removing children from parents and refusing to recognise the trauma and mental health this causes, blaming the parents once again for any adverse reactions when they're in care? My daughter was taken 4 years ago. She was diagnosed in 2018 and is not thriving. Oh my word, what a story. I'm doing all I can to get her out of care, but it's like talking to a brick wall that does not understand autism in girls. Thank you. Is there anybody who'd like to start kicking that one off?
I just want to say I'm so sorry that you've had that experience.
Yeah.
And how important it is for you as a parent to also get support, because no doubt it's had a really negative impact on you. Sorry, someone's ringing me.
They rapidly disappeared.
Can I pipe in there a second? In 2014, Cambridge University did they did a research on autistic women, autistic mothers, and social services involvement. That I think it was Dr. Alexa Paul and Simon Baron-Cohen, and there were about 5 of us that sat on the advisory panel. Lana was one of them, actually. It's a long time ago. It feels like a long time ago. It's only 6 years ago. But there were some statistics there. I believe it's Googleable. But sometimes often I get women come to me and say, you know, I'm an autistic mother, so or they have autistic children, or both, and there's lots of issues with social services. And I think what tends to happen is that particularly if the social workers involved haven't had autism training specifically about autistic children and their mothers, then there can be huge misunderstandings, because what's happening often is that autistic behaviours are sometimes seen under a mental health lens. It might be the case if a child really struggles to sleep, even though they have melatonin and the XYZ, and the bedroom's painted black and there are blacked out windows. If you didn't understand autism, you might go in and go, this looks a lot like neglect. This doesn't look like a child's bedroom. All these kind of things which are so easily picked up. You know, they're seen as one thing when actually it's something else. The context is removed, and there's everyone gets lost in translation. But there's what I would say is, if you can find that online, I don't have a link or anything, unfortunately, but there might be some help there. And also, I just think that we need to make sure that all social workers have a really great understanding of autism. Unfortunately, only this month I was told that one of the young girls I was supporting had her child removed, and there's just it's absolutely heartbreaking. So my love and sincere best wishes to the mother that's asked that question. I can't even begin to fathom what you've all gone through, but I think the fact that you're keeping that discourse open with the authorities is fantastic. I think many mums by now would have given up, and I really hope some justice is done for you and your family. But yeah, huge areas of misunderstanding, unfortunately, still.
I feel that I need to chip in and say something about this because, as I said earlier, I've been at the sticky end of social services. It was quite a fair old while ago now. Not a lot seems to have changed. I wasn't diagnosed, neither were my family at the time, but clearly the responses I was giving and the way I was behaving and the things I was saying were entirely autistic, essentially. And I didn't understand what different things meant. There was abuse involved. I didn't do it. My son suffered a serious head trauma, and it's one of those things that happens an awful lot that you hear about. It's like you're guilty till you can prove you're innocent, and it's very difficult to prove that you haven't done something unless there's other evidence. Now, if there'd been other evidence such as bite marks or handprints that were far bigger than any that I could have done, then it might have made a difference. But the system is very much set up in favour of the authorities and against the interests of the parents. Now, there are no easy answers at all. All I can say is don't give up. Be very careful who you trust, because what I found and experiences I've had since talking to other people, hearing their experiences, is they are being lured in by people pretending to be nice, who then go ahead and stab you in the back. Get some really good advocates on your side that have got nothing to do with the local authorities, nothing to do with the social services, because it's a hell of a fight. It really is. And I grieve for you. I really, really do. And I said earlier, had my diagnosis been around at the time, it would have been used against me. They raked up my old mental health records with that. Even if she didn't do it, we don't think she's capable of raising a child on her own. She's likely to form other unfavourable relationships, and so on and so forth. And the experts and the assessors that are brought in, they are being paid by the social services. They are not independent. They'll take the money, say what the social services want to hear, and that's it. It's so important to get people on your side outside of that situation, because they'll stand with you and they'll help you with your fight. So that's the best advice I can give. But don't give up. Keep sharing it, keep hoping, keep praying, because one day the truth will come out, and that on its own is simply what kept me going. So I hope that was in no way just a little bit helpful.
There's just a couple of little things I'd like to add. One is that there's, in terms of understanding of autism in women and girls, there's a fantastic woman called Ju Blencowe, that's Blencowe, who produced a really nice description for Community Care magazine. She's an autistic woman, late diagnosed, who described her experience of what it was like as a way of helping social workers to begin to understand what a profile as an adult autistic woman and her background would have been like. So that's something for you to share with any social workers that you happen to come up to, and I'll find the link and send it to you so you can add it into the stuff. The second thing, which is just a tiny bit of hope, and I know it's of no help to you when you're at the sticky end, but just a tiny bit of hope, I've got to give you something, is that I know that the Department for Education were very keen to try and get social workers more educated into what autism was and looked like. And at one point they were asking the Autism Education Trust to do a version of their training, which works so well in education, for social workers, because social workers are seeing autism and thinking abuse, and that isn't what's happening. Now, that wasn't picked up at the time, but I know it's something that they're aware of. So if you're interested in campaigning at all, I mean, not, obviously, not if it's your case, you're not going to be able to campaign if it's your case necessarily. But anybody else who's out there who's interested in campaigning, this is something that needs to be picked up. And there was also a guide that was produced that I was involved in some time ago, which is about safeguarding autistic children. And that helped to pick out the difference between abuse and autism, and just so that social workers were aware of that. Has anybody else got anything they'd like to add to that?
Can I just very quickly, I can probably put the link on here actually, but if you go into Google and you Google National Autistic Society, Department for Education, Safeguarding Autistic, I think it's youth, it's the terminology, July 2019, that will come up with lists of what could look like neglect, but in fact, could that be an autistic behaviour? Also looks into all manner of different types of safeguarding, online, bullying, grooming, radicalisation, and about parents and social services, some misunderstandings there. So I would really recommend printing that off or emailing it to whoever you're dealing with, because actually it can help people put that different lens on and maybe see things in a different way, and try and bridge that gap in between understanding.
I think also maybe try and work with the system of you know, saying to them, well, actually, you know, you have to take into autism into account, and you know, maybe thinking about using the National Autistic Society's service directory to find an educational psychologist who knows about autism, to try and think those out, because yeah, I mean, once you're under the microscope of social services, it's difficult to get them off your back, I suppose. And it's finding something that will work for your child and something that social services will see as permissible. But I think it's really important that they, you know, that they know that actually, you know, like Sarah Jane said, something might look like abuse to the untrained eye, but actually that's not what's going on. And I think that that's really important.
Okay, Sarah, I can say my experience with social services from 2007 to date is the misunderstanding, the assumptions, and that's why I'm saying with Laurie, when Laurie spoke about the other side of autism, which people don't want to talk about, the biting, the violence, I want to kill you. My son used to do those. So when you look at school reports, it looked like I was abusing my child, or what was he watching television? I know there's some parents on here where I've been at tribunals with them or team around the child, and you find that no matter how much information we're explained to say this is part of the child's, I won't say it's blaming it, because as they say, autism is not an excuse for bad behavior, but if the child is not being given the tools, or they're exposed to all sorts of things and they come home, us as parents, we get the blame. So it took me to unpick a lot of the nonsense to find out that once my son was in a residential school, I found out that there was something that he said, but it was taken out of context. That I was tying up his hands and his feet, and that was not true. And I noticed when I was to go to pick him up at transport, they used to look at me, and it took me a while to realize what it was. It was because my son was saying things. So as parents, if your child is saying something, and professionals, if you are hearing something, you have to unpick it, because that's where a lot of families, children have been put into care because they believe everything a child says, not realizing if the child is autistic or undiagnosed. Things have been said. So for me, it's fighting a system, and being a black mother is where I'm fighting a system where a lot of the assumptions that have been made, microaggression that's been made towards me, because they felt that I had a chip on my shoulder and I was exaggerating my children's behavior. And obviously, because I'm a single parent now, divorced, they felt it was my parenting, and the fact that I experienced childhood sexual abuse, that was bringing on a lot of my son's behaviours. And that was from a report from a social worker. It used the words, my anxiety is exasperating my son's behaviour. And that was in 2011. So it shows that if parents are not aware of what's been written about them, we are sometimes being judged by what has been put in core assessments by the social workers. So social workers, please be careful. Understand what autism is. and find out where you can get trained by proper specialists and not one-day courses. You need, as parents, we have to keep educating ourselves. So as professionals, you need to do the same as well, because you're growing up a generation into next society of damaged because of what you've input to the parents. And in COVID-19 now, because we've been told that social services are going to be working with the schools, if Senko teachers don't believe what autism is, then we're at another situation that we know we have to be very careful at. So that's my journey.
No, thank you for sharing that. It's really valuable. And the other thing I wanted to add is, I know a lot of parents at the moment, if you've got a child who's school refusing or who's about to school refuse because of COVID, and now they're even more anxious and so they're not going in, there is a risk that you may be accused of fabricating an induced illness. So you need to be aware of that as something that you may be more vulnerable to than other people. The best defense for that is actually having somebody else who is not you, who has seen and can stand with you and support you when you go and talk to somebody else. So as Laurie said earlier, you need to have somebody else who is on your side, who will come with you, because if it's just you, no matter how rational you are, no matter how sensible you are, no matter how much evidence you have less power as a parent, as a single parent, as a single person on your own, than you do with somebody by your side. If you happen to have a partner there, that's fine, drag them in. If you don't, find somebody, a good friend who will be there and who has seen it, can be really helpful. Shall we move on to another question before we get ourselves into a depressive spiral? She says. It's kind of, so Sarah asks, she says, I have two questions. The first Laurie's kindly answered, but I wondered if any of the other panelists had any ideas and opinions. What are the main things mainstream schools could do to support girls on the spectrum in school? Should we take that one first, and then I'll come back to your second question, Sarah?
I'd like to say that it would be really important to have a whole school education about autism, not just the teachers, but I had a really good transition into the first high school I went to, into year 7. They were really brilliant at it, but you know, the rest of the staff didn't get the memo, so it was just the SEN staff, and the teachers didn't, so it was just the SEN staff that knew about it, not everybody else, and also the other kids didn't know about it. And so sometimes they'd pick up on something like, because of my cerebral palsy, I have to wear sandals with back, and one year my mum and dad couldn't find me any black ones, so they bought me navy blue ones, and then they used black shoe polish, and the teachers didn't notice, but the bullies did, and then the teachers sided with the bullies. So I think the whole school being educated about autism, the cleaners, the dinner ladies, the chefs, the teachers, everybody.
I agree fully with you there, Robin. Sometimes I'll do training for the schools that get in the Cullum centres, or the the units for autism, and that model, I think, is a great model of practice, and I think should be up and down the UK in every school's funding permitted, because it makes sure that actually every single staff member gets training, which means the children that don't actually get to go in the unit full time, but are autistic, diagnosed, or might be in their 30s when they get diagnosed, but have grown up autistic, have that understanding throughout the whole school. My thing that I think that actually there's a few things, loads of things that I think the schools could do for autistic children in general, and girls. This whole concept, and this really worried me. I did some work for the Scouts, and the whole concept of, oh, this child looks like they're on their own a lot. So what we're going to do is we're going to pick a buddy for them. And this buddy, which has been picked by the teacher, which probably has no idea what's going on when their backs are turned, they normally pick somebody who is incredibly popular yet comes across kind. And then the autistic young person, who actually might have been quite happy just having some quiet time on their own in between classes, is then almost forced in this unwritten contract with this very popular person to then play with them at all times. But actually, that's it's not fair on the person that's been picked as the buddy, because they're not a supervisor, and they have to have a playtime, and they're not there to be a carer by any means. But actually, for the autistic young person, you've just made them really vulnerable, because should this person that's been handpicked by the teacher to be that buddy actually not be as nice as you think they are when the teacher's back is turned and they're in the staff room. This child can't escape that bullying. This child can't escape the fact that I don't actually want to play with these people. So that's one thing that I really don't like. I don't like the whole let's buddy you up with someone. I think a much better system for helping that unstructured time at playtime could be, we have the buddy bench, the bench where you can sit on it, and if you want a friend, they come to you. Let's have an unbuddy bench for the kids that just want to read a book. The bench which is, I like you, I'm not being antisocial, I just need some time on my own. Or perhaps clubs in the playtimes, lunchtimes, which don't say this is for autistic children in neon lights. It just says this is a Pokemon club. Naturally, the autistic children are going to go to Pokemon club. This is the Harry Potter club. And you might find that actually that's a really good way for young autistic people to make friends, because they've instantly got something to talk about, which isn't the fact that they're both autistic, So I think it just sensitivities around that. And then the built environment. My daughter's home educated, not just because of COVID, but she's been home educated for 18 months now. My other daughter was as well. She's now an adult. And mainly we went to look around secondary schools, and there's one next to us where people are kind of begging to move into the area because it's such a good school. And it is a wonderful school, but it's got these very efficient LED lights which shine blue, and they're on all the time. So actually, even if she felt she could have attempted to go to secondary school, within half an hour of the go and have a look at the school, she can't cope because of the lights. When we think about built-in, I help out on Heathrow, and we look at terminals and the blueprints and kind of the redoing up of them. And actually, we quite rightly think about ramps. We quite rightly think about audio loops. Who's going around going, that light's going to be too bright? And why aren't we doing that in our schools when we know there are so many SEN kids? So anyway, I will get off my soapbox, but it would be lights, clubs which don't neon flash say autism. It's just something which is an activity which lots of autistic people happen to like, and an unbuddy bench.
I love those ideas. Those are brilliant. And the other thing just to add is just to say that if we're thinking about things that are good for autistic girls, and think they're actually things that are good for all students, an environment that's calmer is actually better for all students. An environment that doesn't freak people out from a sensory point of view is better for all students. Structured teaching that provides support is better for all students. And again, we kind of think, oh, it's a special adaptation. Well, actually, a lot of the time it doesn't need to be. It's just better for everybody. So is there anything anybody else would like to add on that one before we move on to the second half of that question? No? Everybody happy? Cool. Right, the second half of the question was, what do the panel think about opinions on self-identifying as autistic? I know there are various opinions for and against. I felt for a very long time that I'm on the spectrum and my daughter has a diagnosis. I'm at a point where I'm uncertain about trying to get a proper diagnosis, but sort of need a way to describe my issues. Right, who wants to lead on that?
I'll go first. Well, I think that self-diagnosis in itself is fine. I think if it was being used as a gatekeep for services, then that might be a problem. But I think if you want to identify as autistic, if you feel that describes you, both my parents feel that describes them. But I think the for of getting a diagnosis would be that it would just help you make sense of your life experiences, and you might not feel that you need that, and I think that's entirely your choice. You might want to have a look at Sarah Hendricks. She's written a book about women and girls, and also Rudy Simone's Asper Girls, and Tanya Marshall's Aspian Women.
Robin, I'd absolutely, Sarah Hendricks, one of my autism idols there. I think one thing that because we're so fortunate to have our diagnosis, I was diagnosed at the Lorna Wing Centre in Bromley by Dr. Judith Gould, which was a really, well, it was a beautiful experience, which is probably a strange way to talk about an appointment, but it was a beautiful experience. Getting an autism diagnosis is an absolute privilege, because often to find the clinician that's using the right diagnostic tool to diagnose you, because you might not fit in neatly to whatever other types of diagnosis tools. You might have to go private, and that can be very expensive. So the diagnosis is very much gate kept by many things. It's gate kept by the fact if you're male or female. It's gate kept if you're a male but you present in a more, and I'm using inverted commas, you can't see, female, passive, whichever way that wants to be described. If you present in a different way, it's gate kept by race, because every single person I've spoken to who isn't white and autistic, have been diagnosed with a mental health condition, and autism just not looked at over and over and over again, even more so, it feels. And it's gate kept by money. So a diagnosis is a privilege. If somebody says to me, I'm autistic, I self-identify, great. If they want or need or can, probably the bigger word, can get a diagnosis, I would say absolutely do it, because otherwise you can feel like you're a bit in no man's land. It's like you're not normal, in inverted commas, enough to get on with the normal guys, and it's almost like you're not formally autistic. It's a horrible feeling. But yeah, I think if somebody self-identifies, they self-identify, and that's it. Because the diagnosis is gate kept by so many hurdles, and for some people they have all those hurdles.
Okay, right, I'm going to jump in, as I wasn't diagnosed till I was 44. I'm fine with people who self-identify, obviously. It's one of those things, it's a personal choice. If it answers questions, if it's important to you to get it, then by all means go for it. It was important to me because it helped my youngest son to get diagnosed as well. He'd already had one assessment, and they told him he couldn't be autistic. They told me he couldn't be autistic, and I wasn't satisfied with that, so I did my own research. Like I said in my talk, then I got diagnosed. He got diagnosed 8 months after me, and it's helped me a lot. It's changed my life a lot. It's been a rocky road. But yeah, for me, it was an important thing to do. And remember, one of those important things, if you were grown up, if you grew up under the sort of hassle, the bullying, the emotional abuse that I had, then you'll understand why I needed to know there was nothing wrong with me. It was very, very important, because I was brought up to believe that I was somehow deficient, I was wrong, I was different, and it made it sound like a bad thing. Well, as time has gone on and I've got to know myself better, the masks and the layers have peeled down, and it's just been the best thing. And I'm a lot happier in myself, but it is a personal choice. Nobody's rushing you into it. So if you don't want to do it now, you might want to do it in a year's time or 10 years' time. That's perfectly all right. You've got a lot of support within the autistic community, and they're very supportive, and they will accept. Most people will just accept that, and they'll be fine with it. So you're in a community. You've found support. You've got friends with us.
Beautiful. I think there's very little to add to that, Laurie. I love the way you phrased that. Thank you. Can I pick up on a question from Amanda, who was talking about her daughter, and she said, since then has done her own hair and had a bath. How can I make these people understand this could be more due to a depressive state due to her diagnosis being a trigger? Does anyone want to pick up on that one?
If it's Amanda who I'm thinking of, her daughter was in the same class as my daughter in secondary. And from what I've picked up, even though we both had the same challenges, yes, it is. I could see I got more help, I think, from what Amanda said, was because I knew everybody to speak to. But what I found out in the end, the school didn't know that I knew this mother. And what happened is where she did something, she didn't get it. When I did it, it took a lot of fighting. But when we look at ourselves now in 2020, what I've picked up was that the daughter has been failed tremendously. And I think you did meet her actually, Sarah, when we was in Norbury, the mother. Yeah. So it's the same mother basically still fighting from when you came to Norbury.
It's a hard, long journey, isn't it?
Yeah.
And I think there is something very powerful about just sharing what the story really is. And that's one of the things I loved about your story, particularly Laurie, when we were talking earlier, is that when you actually explain it in more detail, it makes more sense. Somehow, if you just say, oh, they're not ready because I can't get them to get out of bed, then that just doesn't explain the detail behind why it's that particular issue. And when you explain more about what that particular issue looks and feels like, then they say, oh, actually, you know, that doesn't seem just like you're not caring. That doesn't seem like you're not trying to get them to school. That doesn't seem like you're not bothered about whether they're bathing or not. You're actually seeing that there are more issues beneath that. So if, for example, I mean, we had a question about water earlier, which Robin answered brilliantly. So if somebody said, well, why has your child got a hygiene problem? And you say, well, actually, she is autistic, she's got sensory issues, we've tried wet wipes, we've tried bath bombs, we've tried, you know, then it's obvious that you're actually an involved parent, that you're taking the steps that you need to have, and that actually you could do with a bit of help with that, rather than them sitting there and saying, why aren't you doing this? You know, and it becomes part of a different conversation. So I think what you're trying to do, and it's so flipping frustrating that we have to do this all the time, is to educate people and get them higher up that conversation so that they move away from the judgment and on to the help. Carly, have you got something to add into that?
Yeah, so I was just going to say the word help is incredibly powerful, isn't it? I've found that it took me, obviously I wasn't diagnosed until my 30s, but it took me until around about then actually to understand what help means, because help means having to have a degree of social imagination that by speaking to somebody else, they can have advantageous changes for you. Sorry, I can't get my words out today. And the word help can be powerful in two ways, because I think what happens, particularly when it comes to us as proud parents and somebody that's an authority figure, is that we almost unconsciously decide that we're both going to defend our position. They're defending their position as the professional, we're defending our position as a parent. And a really good way to break that down, as you say, and keep that communication a bit more level, is just to say, I've done X, Y, Z. Actually, do you have any other strategies that could help me? Because then they're like, oh wow, actually I misunderstood this person, and aren't they really genuine and wanting to help. And similarly, just while I'm using the word help, it's very good if your child's angry as well, to, instead of kind of get angry back, just to go, oh, you look like you need some help. I don't know why, the word help just diffuses things. It makes us all human again, and even for a split second we take off professional hat and go, actually they're actually all right. So yeah, use the word help. It seems to get things moving again.
I'm not a parent, so I don't know if this is helpful or not, but I think it sort of ties in with what Vanessa was saying about knowing the right people to talk to. I have found that often social workers nowadays are very sort of, they're almost like a short-lived intervention, that you don't always have the same social worker for any length of time, and they also often don't know about autism. They might have had a day's training course, but that's not really knowing about autism. And I think that what Sarah Jane says is right about, demonstrating what you have tried and explaining it. I think sometimes, just from working with parents, that I think sometimes what parents worry about, and I think that this is a very important worry and very valid, is that the professionals are going to suggest their child do something that is going to be unpleasant or difficult for their child and is going to exacerbate things. And I think if you're in that position, then I think it's looking at the local authority structure and looking at, I don't know as much about children's services as adult services, but in adult services you look for the Autism Commissioner, and legally under the Autism Act 2009 they have to have one. Just be looking for where is the knowledge within your borough, within your area about autism, so that you can have other professionals to back you up. But also be open to trying new things, and it can be easy to think, I think a lot of parents that I meet, they're kind of really exhausted because they've just been battling so hard on their own. And so finding an organisation who can work with you can be a breath of fresh air, but you just got to find the right one.
I think it's brilliantly phrased. Really good, Robin. Thank you. Has anybody got anything else that they'd like to add to that? I think we've got to the end of the questions that were at the end of the session. If anybody's got any other questions they want to ask now, can you type them in with a Q in front of them? Because I'm seeing lots of agreeing with us, and I want to know if any of you got any questions, because I'm getting to the part of the afternoon where my eyes are no longer working properly. So if you put a big Q in front of it, that will really help. But in the meantime...
Sarah Jane, if you click on the Q&A button, it's next to the record.
Brill, thank you.
There's a few questions.
Excellent. Now I've got those there. It's a good thing we've got a full-on tech team here today, isn't it? Thank you, Robin. You're my star. Right, so let's just pick up. Yes, there's quite a few that are acknowledgements. We've got 4 open questions. Let's pick up on those. Yeah, that's sound advice. There's an observation here, which is to remember the anxiety as a teenager, thinking that for the next few decades, most of the time when you're not bleeding, you're potentially able to get pregnant, already pregnant, ill, on medication, if parents are irregular, this is worse. Whoa! Same again through menopause. Yeah, that kind of... Robin, you're probably the best person to pick up something nice and reassuring for that one. It's kind of...
Yeah, that's true. I mean, I think it's really important that young people know how you can get pregnant. You probably aren't going to get pregnant with a bit of sperm on your leg. And I think, yeah, having that knowledge is important. But I think also knowing that, you know, that if you were to get pregnant, there is a lot of support with whatever you decide to do about it. I think also taking the pill is a really good thing. But if the pill is, like, personally, I take antidepressants in the morning, so I always remember to take my pill. But if that was a problem for you, you can get the 3-month injection. And you know, there's various things that you can do. But I think also really understanding, you know, that if you're going to be having sex with someone, you know, knowing how contraception works, knowing how condoms work, not just putting them on. Like, I mean, putting it on a banana is not really the same. I have not found that at all helpful for putting it on an actual penis. And then taking it off is important because you've got to hold the end, you know. So actually really knowing the mechanics of that, I think, is really important. And I'm not really sure how you would, like, when I did the period book, I made periods out of water, food colouring and strawberry jam. But I wonder if it would be possible to... I mean, I suppose maybe, I don't know, I mean, maybe you could use a dildo or something, or a vibrator. But I think, you know, penises don't just stay still in those moments. And I think having, you know, feeling confident in yourself, but also knowing about stealthing, you know, if someone says they're going to put a condom on and then they don't, and, you know, knowing that stuff, knowing about where you can get the, you know, the morning after pill. I think often pregnancy is taught in schools like it's this really scary, terrible thing that happens to people if they're not careful. And I don't think that's a very helpful way of teaching people.
I agree with you, Robin. That the whole kind of sex ed, particularly when I was at school. Now, remember, I was pregnant at 15, so I didn't quite master that class, did I? But, but it, you know, first of all, banana, that's a bit advantageous. Let's find something a bit more life size. And also it is kind of the case, like, you know, if you do all these things, that's good. If you end up pregnant, bad. And actually it needs to be, and I think there needs to be people like you doing it, to be honest, Robin, because you're just so candid, and that's what teenagers need for sure. They don't need us all getting a bit embarrassed around the edges. They need that candid discussion. But yeah, and also, you know, if the worst thing ever, you know, is that, oh gosh, you know, you didn't do X, Y, and Z, now you're pregnant, that's awful. Actually, that as a teen mum, and you know, that can make you a teenage pregnant person, that can make you incredibly vulnerable for people giving you the wrong advice if you do get into that situation, or people giving you advice based on their religious outlooks, and you know, that can get quite choppy. But yeah, when it comes to the kind of morning after pill stuff, I was told at school by, you know, seeking advice. If you're not really sure about context, not very sure that people might lie or just be uneducated themselves, it's probably better to get advice from a registered charity
than it is for the really cool girl in the year above you. You know, I was told if you take the morning pill more than once, it will never work on you. It only works once. You know, all these kind of things. You think, oh, well, is there really any point me going down and embarrassing myself and down at the local sex clinic if it, you know, I've already taken it once before, so it will never work again. Things like this, and just believing myths. And if there was much more candid, open conversations about all the myths and the fibs we're told about contraception and unplanned pregnancy, that I think that would help a lot of people. But you're quite right, it does seem to be, this is scary, this is terrible, never do this or that, and yeah, we need more you. We need to just clone you, Robin, and have you everywhere.
Can I just add that if you are in London, there is a really nice like sexual health clinics can be a bit, I don't know, clinical. I mean, obviously they're going to be clinical, but you know, they can be a bit scary. But there's a really nice one, I think it's called 59 Dean Street, and they are really fantastic. They're really the staff that they employ is like a range of people, a range of genders, a range of sexualities that they open about it. They cater for people across the gender spectrum, and you can do self-tests for much of it, and they're really friendly, and I would highly recommend it. It's much better than Wandsworth's Courtyard Clinic. Wandsworth Courtyard, I mean, the staff are lovely, but it does feel, you know, like a stereotype of a sexual health clinic. It's not the staff, it's just the whole setup. But 59 Dean Street seems very modern, and you know, it's almost like walking into a posh hotel or something. Like, it doesn't feel like a sexual health clinic.
We could almost do with a TripAdvisor system for that, couldn't we? Where we kind of say these are really good clinics to go to, where they're welcoming and rather lovely. So that would be a good one. Whilst we're on the subject, can I pick up a question from...
Laurie hasn't had a chance to answer.
Oh, sorry, Laurie. Did you have an answer for that one? Were you waiting?
No, I was being slightly distracted by Yitzhak, who decided that I needed some cat time. So, yeah.
No argument here.
Going back to your the directory idea, it's where to put it centrally for people to get hold of. But yeah, if we've had good experiences, bad experiences, it'd be nice for it to be somewhere that people know about. And I know it might be dropping it on Venessa, but because we're all here because of you, maybe you could have a link on your website for people to go to, because we might not know each other, we might not have been connected before today, but we all know you. Don't kill me. But I do agree, I do think it's got to go somewhere so that's tried and tested by autistic people, so that we know it's autism friendly. We've either been there as a parent, as an individual, or as a young person. No, like Robin's experiences are incredibly useful because, well, she's, without being rude to anybody, she's stacks younger than the rest of us. So it's good to hear about that side as well.
Brilliant, thank you. The thought that did occur to me was that we could do it in a Twitter thread, and then we could get much wider involvement. That might be quite a nice way to do it, because loads of autistic people are on Twitter. It's a really good place to be.
Sarah,
Mm-hmm.
I was suggesting something. There was one thing that I wanted to do that's always been close to me, was looking at autism and sexual health and hygiene, because that is one issue that has always been close to me. When people have always come and said, I know my daughter's not having a bath, even though I know I had the problem with my son. So I think having Robin here, why I was so glad that she was able to come, was to fit the gap in regards to where parents don't want to talk. And I feel, yes, I was looking at doing a directory, but I think because obviously I am doing the BME project with the National Autism Society, maybe this is something that we can actually put forward at the same time as well. As you said, yes, I do know lots of people, but I think we all need to come together, because I think when I bring everybody together, we're able to speak for each other, in a sense that if I can't say something, Laurie's able to say it, or Robin or Carly. Like, Carly's been my connection, as I said, and I spoke about my teenager daughter. Yes, she doesn't have a diagnosis, but people believe she is on the spectrum because of her vulnerability, the exploitation, easy to get groomed, and why we need to talk about keeping safe as well. People don't want to talk about it, but we have to, because exploitation, grooming, exploitation amongst young girls is really bad, and I know Robin deals with that as well. So
yeah, I'd also say the NAS service directory, maybe we could suggest to the NAS that it could have a sort of like a TripAdvisor thing. You could rate different services out of 5 or something, so people could leave feedback then, because the NAS is known by a lot of people. I think the problem with Twitter is that sometimes you can get lost in it. It's hard to find things.
Yeah, good point. And I want to put in a quick plug for your other book right now, Robin, the Super Safe Guide to Autistic Women, for Autistic Women, which I think is absolutely brilliant. And it's a really good place to go. And it's very practical, very sensible, very approachable. And I love the different categories in there. So I think it's absolutely brilliant. So if you haven't found that, go and look for it. Yes,
sorry, I'm interrupting again, but I feel like I really need to jump in, going back to what Vanessa was saying about exploitation and grooming and all this sort of thing. And I think, to me, this is along the lines of, yes, this is why we need to have the wider dialogue, because there are so many myths and misconceptions still around autism. It's why I'm keen to get the voice of the autistic parent out there. And I'm not talking about autism mamas, the kind of like, oh, well, I know about autism, I've got a kid who's autistic. I'm talking about autistic people as parents. We need to talk about the exploitation and grooming of our vulnerable autistic people, and that could be any age. It could be adult. They could be people in residential care, because of all these myths and misconceptions and bad information, is it being seen as sexuality being overlooked because the assumption is that because there's still this thing like we won't be able to form relationships and all this sort of thing, that it somehow isn't there. And of course it is there. There are an awful lot of us who are or have been sexually active, or who are or have been abused or groomed or exploited, coerced, whatever. It's not talked about because we're not seen as sexual beings. It's dehumanizing us. When it starts to become obvious that, yes, we get sexual urges, or we can do, yes, we can make friends, yes, we can work, yes, we can be bloody good parents. That is what makes us human, because these are our basic human rights, to be able to do this, to do it safely, without being at risk of having our children taken off us because of what people think they know about autism. It is so important to see autistic people as human beings. I've stood in front of a room full of people and said, we are human, we are human. Cut me and I bleed. What is it that's so difficult to grasp? Frustrated.com.
Yeah, I definitely agree. My mum and dad are both autistic and they are great parents.
I think we've broken the myth today, haven't we?
Busted, completely busted that myth.
Busted.
Well, that's what we need. I personally feel, if I had my way, is to go to every MP, every councillor in the local authorities and say, look, you need to listen to this, because right now no one is listening to none of the autistic people under COVID. So I feel right now, that's what I feel like doing, is sharing it and saying, you lot need to listen to this to show why autistic people have got a voice, and not just to look at just one perspective. You've got to look at all perspectives. And that's what I think we've proved today.
Yeah, brilliant. I've got a question that was put in the Q&A, which is, how can I help my daughter accept her diagnosis so that she can understand her difficulties and struggles? I've shared my recent diagnosis with her. Well done, Seagreen. And we've started to talk, but she's quite dismissive of it and sees it as something people can ridicule her for.
Oh, can I jump in on that one?
Go for it.
I work with either in a voluntary or professional capacity with many autistic teen girls, as you can imagine, and almost all of them have said to me, you know, I don't tell anyone at school that I'm autistic because it's kind of like the latest term you use to describe someone who's doing something silly. So I can remember when I went to school, 80s, 90s, it would be, if you did something which people thought was kind of geeky, it would be like, oh, you're so gay. You would never dream of saying that now. You'd be like, wow, that person's a right cow. Did you hear what they just said? You know, you just wouldn't do that. And times have moved on. And now for our young children that are in school, all of these teen girls are saying to me, you know, if you're in the playground, do something silly, they go, oh my God, you're so autistic. So it's a derogatory term. And that, I hate that. And I'm hoping, you know, 10, 20 years from now, that people say, can you believe that we used to say things like that? Gosh, you know, we wouldn't say that today, X, Y, Z. So it's really hard for our autistic teens to come out and say, yes, I am autistic. I think what could be useful in a school situation would be for there to be assemblies on autistic people that have done something particularly useful, and please let some of those be females, not just let's talk about Einstein for an hour, which is normally the case, isn't it? Let's talk about Einstein for an hour. Media also has a big part to play in that, because whenever we're on television, autistic people, we're normally not female. If we are female, we're normally under 18. And if we're in the news, we've either won a Nobel Peace Prize or we were a serial killer. It's almost as if, you know, you have to achieve one of those things to actually be autistic in the media. Hopefully not the latter. So on an individual level, often parents will say to me, how, you know, we know, sorry, you can hear my dog in the background, we know that they're about to get their autism diagnosis. What can we do to prepare them? Don't make it actually about them. Make it about somebody in their area of interest who they admire that happens to be autistic, or probably could be diagnosed as autistic. Speak about their qualities and how they're able to really be interested in a particular subject, and that's made them good at their career. Talk about it in a really positive way, not directly about them. And then when the time comes for them to be diagnosed, it's not going to seem like the end of the world. A very good friend of mine diagnoses, and through CAMS, she's one of the people there that actually delivers the news, the diagnosis news, and she always starts it by saying, we've learned something very interesting about the way your brain works, and this is why you have challenges with XYZ, but this is why you are so good at XYZ. So it's not, hi, you're autistic. It's, we found out something very interesting about your brain. And they start it like that. And I just think actually that's a nice way to be told, isn't it? Because it is validating the challenges, but also making them realise that, you know, not everything's going to be negative about it as well.
Brilliant. I love that. And the other thing I'd like to pick up on that, because I think you're spot on, Carly, is around, it picks up on another question that somebody asked, which is around how to support girls in school with their self-esteem. And I think having positive role models is a key part of that. So how on earth can we, Dean Beadle, who I do lots of work with and lots of you will know, often says, well, if you're offered the choice of being autistic or not, and you're told it's rubbish, why would you want to buy that? You know, it's kind of, we have to make it something that people feel is okay to have and actually can be a huge strength. And those of you who are listening to my chat earlier, when I had a whole set of people that I think are absolutely fantastic with autism, and a whole set of people who have ADHD, and a whole set of people who are dyslexic, you know, about those being real strengths. They are things that are difficult to cope with in some contexts, yes, but they also bring huge strength and huge admirability with me. And I've worked with so many people, and I have to say, particularly the autistic women I know and work with, I absolutely adore. You're phenomenal. The best people to be around, the best friends, the most loyal people, the clearest thinkers, the most straightforward, honest, and people who kick ass, who will fight for what is important. Why would you not want to be one of those? Why would you not want to be one of those? Go on, ladies, over to you.
Temple Grandin edited a book called Different Not Less, and it's just like 600 pages, and it's individual autistic people. There's loads of them in that book.
Lovely, Robin. Thank you. Vanessa.
I know where I stand when I'm with autistic people. And I think from when I'll go back to social workers. I think social workers, if they're not thick-skinned, and when my children used to come in the house, the little one used to say, undiagnosed, I hope you're not going to be like the last one. So I think that the bluntness, the directness can offend a lot of people. And I think people need to educate that if you know you've upset an autistic person, be prepared that you're going to be told exactly what needs to be said. And I think that's what I'm glad about my children. But as a parent, it can be more frustrating, because when they do say, like Laurie said it, I hate you, why are you my mother, all the negative things. And when they say it out in public, you have to be so thick-skinned. And that's my message to a lot of the mothers that feel that they failed their children. It's not that you're failing your children. It's part of the process. If you're not connected with the autistic community, you're going to think you're on your own. As I said, why I do what I do is because of what I learned in the background. So yes, it's the directness that I prefer than for people to be fake. And I know with autistic people, they're not fake. And if everybody says I'm lying, I've not met one who's not told me what they think of me if I've upset them, and I know how to deal with it. So yeah, it's the bluntness. I like the directness. Yeah.
Laurie?
Yeah, I think I agree with that. I tell Venessa all the time she's wonderful, and I have confirmation that I know that she believes me, because she knows that I'm going to tell her how I think about her, which is great. Another thing that's quite tricky to get round is that because we do say it as we see it, we know we're telling the truth, even from very early on. We're being honest. You know, you get this where you might tell your child that perhaps they're being rude or something. They say, but Mama was being honest. I say, but it's how you phrase your honesty that makes the difference between being rude and being okay. Like, so you might tell somebody, they might want to know if their bum looks big in that. And you might want to say yes, but maybe you can say it's not quite as flattering as the other one you tried on. And I sort of like educated my son like that. But one of the things we tend to take on board, because we expect people are speaking to us the way we speak to them. So we might say something honest to somebody else and mean it. I mean, granted, I knew that my son didn't really hate me. But when I heard my mum shout stuff at me, like telling me I was useless and that, the worst thing in the world to hear was, and I heard it more than once, I wish I'd never had you. Which, you know, if you take things literally, you jolly well believe that. So be very, very careful what you say to your children if they're autistic. Please don't say stuff like that, because they will believe you. And be careful in the words that you use. It's not just the words that we use back, but the words you use to us really make a difference. And all that rubbish about sticks and stones might break bones and words will never hurt you. There is no bigger lie on this planet, because they can be very destructive, very, very destructive. And you cannot see them, unlike bruises. You cannot see those bruises on your soul that every one of those verbal beatings gives you. So be careful what you say to your kids, and be careful how you say it, because we do tend to take things literally, and we do tend to believe you.
I agree with that completely, Laurie. The one thing that we've done in our family is that we speak our lives out loud, because we don't always know how other people are going to take things. So we will explain why I've said something that way. And often we'll have a conversation where we just say, look, I'm walking in, I'm just going to vent because I'm really cross and frustrated and it's nothing to do with you, but I just got to say this out loud. And then once you've put it in that context, what then comes out of your mouth, as long as it's not actually aimed at that person, is okay, because then they've heard, oh, I don't really need to listen to this. This isn't something I need to pay attention to. It's not aimed at me. it's just mum being frustrated, or it's just the boy being frustrated, or it's just the girl being frustrated. And what it then does is it decodes that emotion so that you then understand that sometimes when people are saying things, they don't mean it about you. And you kind of, it makes that a regular part of the practice. So you say, okay, I understand that you're cross and frustrated, but I don't think this has anything to do with me. And actually 9 times out of 10, it isn't. And it's just really useful. And they say, well, you may think it's about me, but I actually know it isn't. So you can go away now. You know, kind of do the whole, I'm sorry, I'm no good at the hand thing, especially left-handed. I really wish I was good at that. But kind of talk to the hand. Yeah, that's it. Vanessa's got it. She's got the movement down. I'm just so far away from my teenage that I can't do that anymore. But I think there's something about having that conversation about how you phrase things and when it's okay to verbally blurt and when it's not. And I think in our families, we have to create a space where we understand the emotion and the feeling, the real emotion and feeling, and separate that out sometimes from the things that come out of people's lips. And I loved, Laurie, when you were describing how your son was saying things, but that wasn't what he was actually feeling. That wasn't what he meant. That wasn't what he needed. That wasn't his emotional language. That was just what came out of his mouth. And sometimes we hear the words and we don't understand the emotion. So it's about trying to unpack and unpick that.
Yes, thank you for that. It's when I started seeing him in a very different light.
Yeah.
I'd gone from wondering, like, what is going on here? What is happening with him? When I started to look at him in that slightly different way, I could see that it was because he was frightened. That he didn't know what was going on. And he needed me to be bigger and braver and stronger than what was going on in here. That he needed me to be that massive person. And like I said just a couple of minutes ago, it doesn't work the other way round. We cannot dump our crap on children. They're not there to turn at 5 or 6 years old or whatever, to turn into our emotional support. That's not how parenthood works. So yes, they can shout abuse. They can shout their anger with us. They can shout, I hate you. They can shout, I'm leaving home. They can shout, I'm telling grandma. They can do all of that because it's their way of saying, actually, I'm really frustrated. I just don't know how to say it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you. We've gone over time, but thank you so much for everybody. See, we're all having fun.
Yeah, thank you very much for inviting me.
Thank you for making the time, because I know you weren't well, and I've always got to go back to that. People didn't realise that you were quite poorly.
Yeah, well, I had probable COVID and I have post-viral fatigue. So I'm still struggling, but I really wanted to make it today. And I think you'll probably hear it in my voice. I'm hoarse and I get tired very quickly.
Yeah, no, but thank you for joining. As I said, I think your presentation in regards to periods has to be talked. Even though my daughter, I say period, my daughter says, no. She's sleeping at the moment. So I know that I don't get the funny looks. Before it was like that, look, that don't talk that. So yeah, thank you everybody. And yeah, I think I would advise, get Robin's book, all of their books, Laurie, Robin, Sarah, maybe get some funding. I just said to the panelists, maybe we should do a GoFundMe and I'll put it on in the idea where I can actually see if I can buy orders and everybody can get a free book if we do it as a part of a package. You never know, it's not impossible. So maybe if I do GoFundMe, if everybody would support me, raise the money, that we can actually do something like this once a month, that we can help everybody and we can bring in other speakers. What do you think, Sarah?
Yep, absolutely.
There is so many other speakers out there from different perspectives that, that I can't speak about. Why I think it's so important. Everybody needs to be educated, and maybe I'm going to always go back to the MPs and councillors, because when we have a problem, we've always been told, go back to your MP. And if the MP doesn't understand what autism is, then we're on a losing battle. So I think hopefully this is what we can do. And thank you everybody for joining. And yeah, spread the word. We're not going nowhere.
Thank you so much for doing that. Bye, everybody.
Bye.